Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Rex is currently on a flight right now. He's actually on his way to Neocon. I've been helping him set up meetings, so he's going to be pretty busy having fun. Hope you're all doing well. Today we have Heather. Heather is going to be walking through the workshop that she's creating in the next few weeks. And so she just wanted to get some feedback and thoughts and perspectives. So feel free to share, interject. She wants as many ideas as possible so she can think about it and compile it together. So go ahead and take it away, Heather.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nathan. So I am new to the executive coaching as an independent realm. And my background is primarily been on coaching centered around lean and continuous improvement for construction, and where I spent 4 years being a lean manager, developing curriculum and teaching and training lean implementation and supporting project teams across the country. And so this client that I'm working with is a construction general contractor, and they've been on their lean journey for 7 years. And their challenges and the reason that they want me to come and work with the team is that they started with the boots on the ground with the project teams, learning lean and implementing it, which has worked really well, but they've kind of reached that threshold where they're not having the implementation that they wanted to see and the engagement from many of their team members. And the burden, the load is not a team effort. It's on kind of a small group. And they want to get leadership to engage more and have an understanding of what are the goals and expectations. So the kind of four things are for them to kind of have a better understanding of the business case for lean, to have a clear definition of what leadership's role is with lean implementation, and then also going to do a Valego, which is a last planner for construction simulation to understand those steps. Some of the leadership team have been through a 40-hour lean for construction training and workshop, but not all of them have been through. AGC has developed a curriculum for those of you in the construction industry. And so my thought was the team isn't struggling like some of the calls that I've been on where the leadership team is having some issues, but the people that are really trying to push this don't see the engagement and support from leadership. So we want to help with identifying what the leadership's personal goals and strategic initiatives is my kind of first thought. What's their current state and ideal future state? To then develop what are some metrics that we could measure to identify what does success look like and how are we going to start to measure that. My thought with strengths is if I can come in and talk about the strengths assessment, show them their assessment so that they're starting to that personal value for them of what's in it for me, but also as we start to develop what would these goals be in these matrix, using how do we leverage their strengths to then create a plan for implementation that's going to be more successful and long term. Jennifer, I saw you kind of raise your hand. Nope. Okay. So that's where I thought that the strengths finder really ties into it, is if I'm leveraging their strengths as we develop this plan, we'll have better long-term outcomes and sustainability of the plan.
I think I don't know what's getting in their way. I don't know if leadership is not on board So yeah, the reset is really important. And I think it's really helpful if they've not done strengths work, for them to know who is getting in their way, what behaviors. So I think that's going to help. How many people are we talking about?
22 have taken the assessment. They initially told me there was going to be 13. So between 13 and 22.
Mm.
And what it's going to be is, it'll be a Thursday from 1 to 5, and then it's a Friday from 8 to 4. With going out to dinner on that Thursday night.
Hey Heather, Gary here.
Hey Gary.
How you doing?
Good.
You characterized it. I forgot how you put it, but you said this team isn't as challenged as some as I've seen or heard of when we discussed previous. Like I had one that was a disaster, and there've been others. But you also said some members of leadership are concerned that they aren't getting the engagement that they need. So why is it that they're not? It seems to me they're a pretty typical team. Just like the boat. The boat represents most teams. So there's usually a couple of people digging holes in it. So maybe this team is just as challenged as all the other ones. It's just softer in how they go about it. So I'm curious how you're characterizing their current state and how they interact with the team.
Okay. That is because they came to me not as we are this ineffective team and we're not getting the results we want. What it is one member of the team that's really responsible for this lean implementation says, hey, leadership doesn't see that they're a part of this equation and doesn't see the value of this initiative, or is not pushing this initiative in effective ways. So that was where I was thinking is they didn't say, hey, we're not getting the results we want. We're coming to you for help for that. It's they are at a point they've seen some success, but they're not getting the buy-in from the teams, from the leadership, and from the trades. And so then that immediately makes me realize that there's not value recognized, and it's not, the value is not being relatable at a personal level so that you get that buy-in. What's in it for me?
Okay.
So did the executive group start this initiative, or is this a grassroots initiative? Have they had buy-in and now they've lost it? I mean, I don't understand why this is being pushed if leadership is not on board with it.
Same. I have the same question.
Leadership is on board with it, but I don't, my understanding is that they think we've tasked this to one person to go do, now go implement, and they don't see their role in that successful implementation.
Mm.
They see it's something that happens at the project. And I'm not working at the project level, so I don't have, and some of them have been through training. So from my experience with this exact situation is leadership doesn't understand the tools and lean enough to effectively see what their roles, or how to ask questions, how to do those daily things. So they're not going to be comfortable coming onto a project and asking questions and supporting it. A comment made specific was when they do their milestone planning and use one of the tools, leadership's not involved in that planning process. And they feel that having leadership there in those planning meetings will um, signify the importance and their support. But I see from a leadership standpoint of how do I go to all of those meetings and still do my job? I've kind of tasked that down to people. So what value am I adding?
So I'm going to give you a big general statement, is that here's what I found is that typically it does not just construction, it's almost every industry, is that leaders think the problem is the employees, and the problem never really is the employees, but they're not going to admit it's them. So what your task is going to be is, how do I train the employees and somehow bring the leaders in so that they have aha moments all on their own, and then they own those aha moments for themselves. They'll never ever hear that they are the problem. It's something they have to figure out on their own, and then support them in a way that is, yeah, you don't need to be 100% in meetings all the time, but what would happen if you did 10% more?
Right.
And then when the employees see the difference, even 10% is a huge thing. So you have a very traditional problem. I mean, this is across everywhere. I write LinkedIn profiles, and trust me, leaders, when I write their profiles, they never think they are the issue, with a small percentage of them that realize, I do have something. And I personally, Jennifer Darling, was one of those leaders early on in my career, until I knew better. So you have to secretly use your secret weapons to help the leaders while you are helping everyone. Makes sense?
I'd love to hear from the group. From my chair, it would not have occurred to me to use strengths or genius spark in this situation. It would never have crossed my mind that in where you're sitting, Heather, you'd say, we should do something with strengths. To me, that just adds another piece that's going to add to complexity versus change management or buy-in for the problem. To buy in the problem first, like sell the problem before you sell the solution. So I'd love to hear that's my thought. And what do you think? Am I off?
I mean, I agree, Rob. I think most of the issues that we face in our organization are much like Gary said. There's usually one or two people that have the louder voices that are keeping people from engaging. And if it's not a team dynamic problem, then I agree. I'm not sure strengths are really going to come into play, but putting the team together that's going to really implement this or engage senior management, understanding whose strengths you really need to tap into to get that done could be very helpful.
Yeah, it's funny, Rob. I'm glad.
No, go ahead, Gary. No, Gary, go ahead.
I'm glad Rob spoke up, because I'm sitting here thinking, I have two questions before we even get to something like strengths. One is, what is the process they normally use to create and implement initiatives? What is their process? How do they do that? And then I would say, how did they do it this time? Why is this initiative not getting traction? So to me, there's a process issue and an expectation that comes along with it. And I'm wondering, what do they expect to happen when they do these things? And why didn't it happen, or hasn't it happened this time? Before I even go to something like strengths, those are things I would want to know.
You're muted, Heather.
Oh,
Thanks.
there you go, Heather. I actually am on the opposite side. I actually see strengths as being a very good thing here, in the way that where I talk about that silent secret weapon that you may be able to create here. And given the fact that you expected 13 people to go take a strengths profile and 20 tells me that that is 50% more appetite than you expected. 150% of people are wanting to know more information. in trying to figure out the problem. And I think if you look at one of the things that Rex has suggested, and I haven't been here in a while, so I don't remember how long ago it was, but one of the things Rex has suggested in looking at your genius spark and your kryptonite is taking a focus at the kryptonite and figuring out, taking the genius spark and the kryptonite together and figuring out, like, what are the kinds of behaviors and actions that I'm doing to create some disparity with other people. So Nathan could probably give you a better example specifically, but I think that exercise alone helps people to own and take accountability for their own strengths and the opposite, the shadow sides of those strengths, so that they can all have a better communication platform going forward. So I do see it as something that I think would be enlightening to them before you, I mean, to me, before you got into the weeds of the other things. I think there would be a lot of self-discovery.
And the team has taken, they were using Colby, or some people had done Colby, but not 100% of the leadership team, and not 100%. And when I spoke with them about it, they said, yeah, it was very complex and they don't really use it. And so my hope was, if I can come in and show them the strengths assessment and show them the value of that, and give them that platform, like you said, Jennifer, to start talking about and using those tools, then my thought was they're going to immediately come and see a value in that. And then how else, what other lean tools or what other things could provide a value? And now I'm intrigued and I'm open-minded to learning more about how I could get more involved, or how these could provide value.
I also suppose it probably depends on how you use the strength tools. And if you're going to focus on the genius spark and the kryptonite, the genius spark statement and the kryptonite piece for Rex gives this, Nathan, help me out here. Rex gives this example he uses, and he pulls you and Maddie up and he says, when I'm in my strength of this is the side, like, this is the other piece that I need you to come back to me and say, like, for example, Rex, we need more detail. You're snow driving us right now, kind of thing.
Rules of engagement.
Yeah.
Dust. The big one for him is dusting. Like the other
Dusting.
day, well, there's this thing he has next week, and I'm like, I don't know who to contact. I don't know what like is happening or anything. So I was like, Rex, I need details. He said, oh, go reach out to this person, and so then it was fixed.
Right.
Heather, I really like what Jennifer just called out, which is the level of enthusiasm and participation in what you're doing is a sign of something. And I think that's a really important take. So you have a group here who is interested in your help. So to me, you're in a really good position to help them, because they're asking for help.
Yep.
And they're buying in, even though they don't really know what they're buying into. So I think that's a really positive development. And I think you could go about whatever way you're comfortable. I think Jennifer has given you, a path that she would take. I certainly believe strengths is and should be a part of this. I just like to use strengths strategically and know where I'm going with it to have a better understanding. That's just me personally. I like to know the end game. I like to know what the problem is, what the challenges are, so that I can call out things along the way and point them out that fit that narrative. So I'm probably a little more manipulative in how I do things. So, but I think either way is good. You just have to determine what your comfort level is. You've got a client who's ready to be helped, which is a great thing.
I do think this current state, future state is really important, though, because if the team's not on board on where they're going, they're never going to be on board with how they're going to get there. So I agree with what Rob said. I think you can weave strengths into that, but if we're not all headed in the right direction, And I agree, Rob. I think it was they didn't really navigate the change initiative properly. So that's why people are being left out and everyone's going, he's in charge and what are you doing? And it's, not me. So, yeah, it sounds like a pretty significant reboot to me.
And the owner, two of the owners, who are the name, like it's their company that they started with their name, have already had, they had a assessment. They'd already created one or had one done. And I got the feeling, so I jumped on a 30-minute call with the whole team to talk about what was the intent of the meeting, what were we going to cover, what we're going to discuss, because not all that is always communicated effectively, and then people are invited to meetings and they don't know what they're showing up for. And I also found when you ask them to do an assessment or something, if there's an action item, an email is not effective to getting them to complete it. So I had a 30-minute brief call. Every single one of them, no one had their camera on. Normally I would challenge that and say something, but with a brand new client, I didn't. But they immediately have gotten very quick response on taking this survey and the assessment. When I put the initial proposal together, the ask initially was, come do this Valego exercise, which is a 5 to 8 hour simulation on the last planner system, which is using Lean as a scheduling planning tool for construction projects. Then they said, well, I think the challenge is that not all of leadership, they're not engaged, so they don't see the value in Lean. So doing a discussion on the business case. And then I brought in the Strengths Finder and the Genius Spark, and he said, well, put it in there, but have it as a separate action, like a line item separate in their proposal. And immediately came back with, yes, that's great, let's do it. Because the owner had gone to a leadership weekend event and had learned about it and had been wanting to do it. So that's
so typical. This is so typical. So I mean, it's just this is so like you could put 5,000 companies in this situation. The leadership goes up and does a leadership retreat. Great. He comes back or she comes back the same damn person as they left. That's what everybody sees. How many people are you talking total? I heard you say a number earlier, but like how many
13 to 22.
How many people are in the company?
I don't have those numbers.
But like guess them, is it 50, 5,000?
I'd say 200 to 5. I'd say 500 is probably too much.
Okay.
They've got several different subsidiary and branches.
And you're just working with one department?
I'm working with just their construction department.
Okay, and how many leaders are in the construction? I would find out how many leaders are you talking about in the construction department? And how many people total on the team, and find out if it's like 25, 50, because it makes a big difference on what you're doing. And do you have a long contract or a short contract? Are you doing a workshop? Are you doing like
this workshop right now?
Okay, so here's the problem. They want you to come in and give them a Band-Aid in a workshop, and they need a culture transformation. And it's not the worst problem in the world. It's just that you have to understand and you probably, I'm guessing you do, because you seem like a very, very smart person. You already know it's like the workshop only gives them one piece, which is why you're hearing from Rob, Cammie, and Gary about this is really a bigger, super big issue here. What's happening? I was in the same position. I was I worked for a Fortune 50 company. It was huge. And we are all supposed to start using CRMs. The salespeople hated it. The managers didn't use it, but required the salespeople to use it, and they didn't buy, and it never really got off the ground. But yet you could come in and make the use case 5,000 different ways to why they should be using the CRM, because why it mattered to the company. And they missed the really integral part, is why it mattered to the person and how it's going to change their lives. And this is just you got a big issue. So if I were in your shoes, I might go back to them and I would tell them, sure, we can do a workshop, but it sounds like you have a bigger thing going on. And the very first thing I would do is start interviewing people at every level. And I would charge for that interview and I would give them an executive summary of the issues that they're having and then how I would deal with it.
Okay.
And one of those could be a workshop. It could be 4 workshops. It could be coaching for a whole year. I think, Heather, you are sitting on potentially like $120,000 contract if you can wrangle all this in right, because they need a transformation. But what they have to start with is a breakthrough. You cannot give a transformation in a day. You can give a breakthrough. Aha, this is what's happening. And then when you look at it that way, it is the small steps along the way. This is my thoughts. Hopefully that gives you, some help and advice of how to use the tools, because I think all the tools are valuable here. But
So Jennifer, in that situation, what are some of the breakthroughs that you have done in that kind of a time situation?
yeah, so if I were to look at using the strength, well, the first thing I would do is I would want to interview everyone. And so a big breakthrough without even having the team together is to report back to the leadership team. Here are the issues that is running in your organization. And you have to do that confidentially. You interview people confidentially. You can't tell them who said what. That's just part of coaching. You wouldn't do that as a coach anyway. It's like, I will give you an overview report, but I'm not going to tell you who said what, just so you know. But you need to see what's happening in your company. There's a reason people aren't buying in, because people are going, stop giving me assessment. You guys aren't doing shit about it anyway.
Right.
You want me to take another assessment? You waste
Yep.
my time.
Mhm.
It's not the people aren't the problem.
Yep. And where I see their struggle with lean implementation is that it's the project's responsibility. It's that superintendent's problem or responsibility. And it's a culture and it's a shift and it's a team effort. And if you are putting that burden on one person, it will never be successful.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have group meetings like, I'm going to bring 20 people in and don't turn the camera. They're telling you something by not turning the camera on. If you'd have called them out, you would have just lost. Good for you. You knew that, because you'd have lost your credibility and any piece of trust you had by telling them. The thing is, 20 people coming in, nobody wants to say anything because nobody wants to put their job at jeopardy. Nobody wants to put have a bad face. Nobody wants to do those things.
It was a Friday at like over lunchtime as well.
Yeah, you know what I want to do on a Friday over lunchtime if I'm on their staff? Have my lunch and then get the hell out of there.
Yeah. Yeah. No one's invested.
And it's not
Okay.
their fault either, it's like
Mm-mm.
it's just not their fault. But you gotta gracefully create that aha. So the breakthrough might be, if I was using strengths, then it's like the breakthrough might just be, where personally am I having one communication issue? Where could I improve in one area of communication? Not my whole strength, everything that's going on. Like, where's the team? How's the team profile look? How are we as a team? And get them to be talking about that. And then where can I specifically be responsible for improvement of one thing? Okay, I'm done talking, sorry. And I gotta run because I have actually a meeting with my team. I'm gonna text her real quick and let her know that I'm running 5 minutes behind, but I hope that's
Thanks so much,
helpful.
Jennifer.
I'd
Yes,
love to hear
thanks.
how it goes.
I will definitely be reporting out.
I'm really passionate about this because I was both the employee and the leader in these situations you're talking about only like 10 or 15 years ago. So it's like crazy, drives me nuts. It still happens, but it does. All right, ciao.
Great
Bye.
advice, Jennifer. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Here's something I'll tell you that you can know going in. They have a serious engagement problem. Okay. When people do not have their cameras turned on, they are not engaged. That's just a fact. So going in, and you don't have to tell them that you know this, but going in they have an engagement problem. So how do you get them to reveal it? one of the great ways of revealing it is doing a boat exercise, and it's super simple. You put the boat up there, you tell them what the boat is, you tell them the story behind the boat. You know, it's about Gallup, and for 25 years we've been measuring engagement. It doesn't ever change. It always looks like this. So your team probably looks something like this too, because most do, but maybe you don't think that it's you. But let's take a poll. And I also will tell you, I did with the client what Jennifer suggested, because I didn't think they would reveal it in front of one another. I interviewed all of them independently for half an hour, and they spilled their guts. But when they're in front of each other, they don't say what's on their mind. So once they spill their guts to you, you know, so you can kind of say in the meeting when they're together, look, guys, maybe you're not comfortable staying in here, but you said it to me, and here's some of the things you all have said. So we need to talk about it. So I love her idea of doing that. But I think you could really start this by talking about engagement and then back into how we're using strengths to identify various ways of mitigating it or leveraging it.
There could
Rob,
be a
what do you
step.
think?
Yeah, there could be a step to ask leadership, and I don't know leadership, what that means, if it's the owners or somebody else, but somebody who's influential, to say, look, I need your help. And maybe it's just advice and almost to recalibrate the whole project. So you do have a choice: go do the session and leave, charge them and say thanks. The other option is to do some things first to get so that the day they're investing both in time and in money with you has value. So you might go to someone to say, look, I need your help, or I want to get your advice on how to make this more impactful. I'm not sure it's going to work at the current state and the current what's on people's minds currently. And so and then you talk and ask, be curious and get some advice, but then go there with a plan in mind that could be altered as you talk. But here, is the word that comes to my mind is recalibrate the whole thing. Is recalibrate a bit. There's a few steps that need to happen for this to be a pivotal moment in your company where lean now changes how you go to work, how you do work. You've seen it in other companies. People know generally lean is valuable, and yet there's resistance because it's different, right? And so maybe it's the recalibrate, but it's to say, hey, let's just think differently about this just for a moment. Strengths can be a part of it. I still have a hard time seeing it as like a beginning point to get to where you want to be.
Okay.
That's the part I struggle with. It's not a hammer like, hey, let's the hammer, let's just do that, and then we'll get there. It's maybe a different tool, right? Or maybe it's not a hammer yet, or the tool from
Right.
the toolbox yet.
I mean, I would guess that there's a reason why they're not engaging. There's a reason why their culture is set up this way. There are behaviors that absolutely have to change. But I agree with Rob. Until they understand where they're at and why they don't have a culture that will allow people to speak up and do all of that, they're not going to, again, the Band-Aid, comes up.
Yeah.
And they're
And-
looking for a quick fix, right? And there isn't. This is not a quick fix situation.
The things that kind of come to me is they've been on their lean journey. They just developed this, like, their lean journey and what are the 10 steps to their lean culture, but it's very like superficial, and I don't see that there's like where's the action behind that? How do you see that? How could someone come and feel or see that on the site or working for them
And give a shit and buy into it.
right? And so they don't have a dedicated person to that role. So if leadership, I mean, if they've been on it for 7 years and they've seen value, how do they not put their money where they're like back that with a dedicated support to champion that? So I like the idea of the boat exercise, and I had been planning on reaching out to more of the leaders to get their one-on-one of what are their concerns, where do they see the problem with the implementation. And I got kind of 3 basic summarized responses to that, which were it's a lack of buy-in at all levels in operation for lean, a lack of application in their pre-con and senior level management to get it started right, and then a lack of not having, you know, a dedicated resource to support the mission.
Gary, have you seen success with the boat activity just one-on-one with a leader? And say, and show the boat, describe it, and say, what do you think? And you're muted.
Yeah, I know. I'm out of Five Guys. It's a little noisy in here, so I'm trying to mute when I'm not talking. Sorry for that. Yeah, I've done it. It's a real easy thing to do one-on-one. I mean, one-on-one, people tell you what they think. In these groups, they don't. Unless they don't really think it's about them. So it's great when you can do an exercise when they don't really think it's about them and they'll tell you the honest answer. But as soon as it's about them, they get cautious. So individually, people might tell you, okay, I think we have 70% of our people in the back of the boat, but you're not going to hear that when you come into the room with us. They might tell you stuff like that. Or they might say, I'm not aware of it. You might find out they're just clueless about how disengaged people are. But you will find out something. I've never done anything formally in terms of an exercise like that. I talked to people, like I talked to the managing partner about the boat exercise before we did it, and I put him through it. I'm like, what do you think it is? So we did have that conversation, but I think it's much more valuable in a group because most people don't really think about themselves when they're talking about the boat. So they're kind of honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always somebody
I've-
else in the back.
I've seen the boat I've seen Rex give the boat exercise, but it's been quite a while. Is there like a recording of that, or would somebody be willing to kind of walk me through that before?
Nathan can probably find out if there's a recording. I'm happy. In fact, I want to follow up with you anyway. I work with the U.S. Green Building Council, and I would love to tap your brain on some advice I could give to them because they're struggling. Their membership's down. So let's you and I connect outside of this.
Okay.
And when we do that, I'll walk you through how I did. I did the boat exercise. I do a little differently than Rex. Hopefully Nathan can find something so you can see how Rex does it. And I'm happy to walk you through how I did it and how I didn't do it. I had a couple different ways of doing it, and I kind of decided on one midstream. So I think there's options on how you can handle it.
Okay.
And I'm happy to walk you through it.
Okay.
Can I sit in on that too? I would love to see somebody else's take on it. That would be great.
Sure.
I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And then actually Maddie would be the best one to have the boat exercise because she's been working on all of Rex's content and stuff. So Maddie, if you need Heather's email, I can get it to you, but let me know.
I think I have it. Yeah, there's a video somewhere. I'll dig it up for you.
Okay.
Great.
And then with them knowing everybody, where do you guys see the value of doing a icebreaker, and any suggestions on that? My hope was the call that I'd be able to get to have a little bit of a conversation, at least some face connection before I came in to make that a little softer transition. But that was apparent that not the case. I have spent one of their superintendents that's new to the company, so got a fresh set of eyes, has gone through that lean training with me virtually. So we've got some sort of trust and repertoire already built. So thoughts on that? Have any of you done silent squares or seen the silent squares exercise?
Before you share that though, the new person that has experience may not have credibility with the others yet, right? Because they're new.
That's correct.
So be a little careful of that. Hey, so-and-so did this. And they're like, well, that's the new guy. We don't care about him.
But I was hoping to gain some insight from his perspective with what he's got, that fresh set of eyes, or what does he see? But that's a good point. And then, there was one more. Anyways, on the icebreakers. So silent squares is you have puzzle pieces in groups of 4. You can have as many groups of 4 as you want in the room, and they have to make a square. And the goal is everyone in the room has a square in front of them at the end. Some of the pieces will automatically very easily fit a square, and some people will put their computer over it and immediately start working because they're only focused on themselves. But the goal is it's the collective whole, it's the team. And we're not done until everyone, and breaking down those barriers and those perceptions that I'm competing against the other people in this room, and I'm not going to share, and I'm not going to help. And that's kind of the general, I like to get how many years of experience everybody has in the room in the industry. And I say, we've got, 300 years of experience. If only one person's talking, then we're missing a lot. And so we want to have everyone talk, and we want to get the collective value and discussion and perspectives. And then the other question is on the boat exercise. You said it works well individual or in small groups to get people talking. Are any of you familiar with, I may not be thinking of it right now, the 1-2-4 all, which is, I'm not going to think of what that, it's where you spend a minute, like you ask the group a question, where do you think you are in this boat? What's your thoughts on it? They spend a minute thinking internally, what are their thoughts? Then they pair up for 2 minutes in pairs, and then they spend 4 minutes. You get 2 pairs together. What did you guys find and discuss? And then the groups report out to the whole to see what did everybody come up with. And if they're writing it down in these small groups, like you say, there's more one-on-one discussion. And what I've seen when I've done this with teams, the realization of we're all in different roles or different places, but we all had those same challenges. I did it with what are the challenges you're facing? And it was communication, and it was manpower. Just, it was interesting to see the vice president and the foreman on the project are all struggling with similar struggles. I'll think of what that's called, and send it to you guys in a message. I'm not thinking of what that, it's almost like a methodology, and I don't truly understand it. I've been through an explanation of it, but that one tool has been really valuable. Okay,
So-
what else? Go ahead.
So you received basically three bullet items from leadership on what they think the problem is, right? Buy-in, application, and dedicated resources. So I'm trying to think, like, why are those the problem, right? I mean, what can you do to make them realize that, okay, if that's the problem, why is there no buy-in? If application is a problem, why is that the problem? So, how do you get it down to that next layer? Because, and I'm not sure, until they realize that communication is the problem, or whatever, or leadership's the problem. I mean, that's ultimately where, we need to get to. Maybe people who've used the boat assessment can explain more how that would tie in to them getting to this underlying cultural issue. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the light bulb goes off for us every time because we get it. But I'm not sure. I'm struggling with how you get people in the room to say, here are the issues, why do we have these issues?
Yeah.
It almost sounds like the boat activity could be only about lean implementation. Like, well, no one in the boat likes lean. Now what?
Right.
And so it's a different discussion. You have to maybe think of the bigger picture and bring the bigger picture to them, that lean implementation is an indicator or a sign of cultural problems. If that's true, maybe they all are super engaged. They just don't like lean. That could be the outcome. And they say, well, guess what? We just don't like lean. So thanks for nothing.
Right.
We're going to try something different. I don't know. I mean, there could be other things going on.
Heather, where did you say this idea started? Where is the initiation of this
Mhm.
project? Where did it start?
I was at the AGC National Conference, and I'm on the National Lean Education Committee with their operations. The operations guy, he is the chief performance officer that's responsible for lean implementation and doing most of the trainings within their company. And actually, and we got to talking. I was sharing my experience of 4 years working, implementing it from a GC level, like what he's trying to do and the challenges that I saw and some of the things that I did. And he said, "Oh, that sounds great. Would you come and do some of those with our team, with our group?" Maybe that's, I think this is one of those pieces that we're missing that I'm trying to figure out. How do I have this successful implementation and journey? And so does that?
I'm curious, inside the company, whose project do they think it is? Do they think it's the operations guy, the chief performance officer? Do you think it's coming from higher? Where do they think it's initiating?
That's a good question. I think it is leadership because I mean they have invested. They've sent 51 employees through this 40-hour training through AGC, which is $6,000 per employee, plus then a training and certification. And they've had everyone, I believe, that has taken it. They have 21 employees that have passed the test. So, I mean, there's buy-in, but my experience with lean is you go take that training, but that's just an aha and awareness. There's limited resources and tools to take it from an awareness to practical application. And how do I do this successfully? Especially when I've got all these other roles and responsibilities, and most people view many of it as one more thing I have to do.
Heather, I have a question. I jumped in late, so I apologize. I'm still wrapping my head around like the whole conversation. But a question was, who are the employees that they've sent? Because if the people that are being sent have knowledge and they're individual contributor, I don't know the structure, but they don't have any power or autonomy to actually do anything with that knowledge, then it's nothing more than knowledge. And that's just like red flags to me, alarms go off where I'm like, it's great that they spent a lot of money and a lot of time to do this. That's awesome. Why isn't it facilitating? And usually that's an autonomy problem or a lack of ownership problem or a process problem or, the implementation manifesting from more than just knowledge. So my question is, do those people that have knowledge actually have the authority to go in and make any changes based on their knowledge, or do they just get to sit there and
right multiple? And I'm asking that question. He's out on vacation. Multiple from pre-con have been through it. There are multiple within the leadership group that have been through it. There are multiple at the boots on the ground level that have been through the training. But what they say is there's not the resources to continue that. There's not the resources and support to continue that journey and that training. Once they've gone and learned it, there's more needed. And that's really, like they said, that third bullet point of having that dedicated resource to support. And my guess is leadership doesn't see that value. They don't see that value of well, I sent all these people to go and be experts. Why do I need to have a dedicated resource to that? but it's no different than safety, a dedicated safety resource, or, you know, any of the other roles. Okay, I liked your idea about, you know, doing the boat as just a lean initiative. And how many of you have like understand about, have any awareness or exposure to lean construction? I think Gary, you do, maybe. Okay, I thought you did, Cami. Just to know when I'm saying, like, am I speaking a different language? Lean often is a 4-letter word, Cami, you see it.
Yep.
And so
it's also this nebulous thing that we use as a generic term like tissues, right?
Right.
I mean, and Kleenex. It's just, it's like we even need to define what it is. And I mean, I really think this group needs to get back to the why. Why are we even having this conversation? Let's just
Right.
scrap it. Let's scrap it and move on. If this is not important, let's move past it.
Yep.
There's
Lean
just
is
no
one of those
buy-in.
things where everybody knows it's a great thing to do as long as somebody else is in
does
charge
it.
of it.
Yep.
Yeah. And I describe it as math. I relate it to math because there's calculus, addition, trigonometry. There's so many things that there's theories, there's tools, there's application, there's formula. It's so big and complex, and so is lean. And how are you using it or describing it depends on what you're really talking about.
I mean, I think they almost need to rewrite their whole business plan, why they're doing it, what they're going to get out of it, the steps to make the change. Like Rob said, they've totally negated. They just said, we're going to do lean and, you know, it's just supposed to magically happen. Change doesn't happen that way. And I had something else pop in my head and it popped out just as fast. But I think really getting back to that why. And I've been in my organization, I've been asking questions as blunt as, well, let's just get rid of it as a trigger, right? Because then everyone's like, well, what do you mean get rid of it? We've spent 7 years on this. Yeah, but it's not doing anything. Let's just get rid of it. And just have them start to see, well, we can't do that. Well, why not? And start thinking, I do that a lot on teams when they've got that one person they're always complaining about. I'm like, well, let's just fire them. Well, we can't fire them. Well, why not? All you do is bitch about them. Let's just get rid of them. Or you as the leader have to step in and figure out how we're going to really utilize this the way it needs to be done.
Okay. Kimmy, have you been through the Vallejo exercise?
I have not. I'm very peripheral in our organization. I worked as a steel detailer. So about the time I started exiting, we really brought in, we utilize pull plans very religiously. They're an expectation on our projects, and we introduce it to a lot of our subs. We trickle it into all parts of our organization. That's what I know the most about. I'm not that well versed in lean.
So it's a simulation of building a house using pull plans and learning the tools.
Yep.
But what I need to know better, like Maddie, what you said is what's their level of who's been trained, and I want to know what each leadership's level of lean is. They've asked, my fear, which I want to ask you guys, is I don't want to just give the customer what they ask for, because even from my design background, they think they know what they want, but they really don't. And I don't want to just come in and spend 6 hours doing this Vallejo simulation. Where's the tangible of their time? And I think it's more of a, what are the problems? Where are they at current state? And developing that business plan, leveraging their strengths to say, now, how are we going to create these cluster groups or teams to go take ownership? And I see making a, okay, we've identified the problems. Now I'm going to break you up into some groups and start to develop, how would you go in? How would you change that? How would you implement that? What would that initiative look like? And who wants to be on which initiative based on an interest level?
Yeah. I mean, the big, I might go back to the leadership and say, okay, I've been talking to different people, blah, blah, blah. I'm still not convinced that we're down to the actual problems. And I need to really understand what you want, what results are you looking for from this? Because I can sure do this simulation, but what do you want to get out of this? This simulation is not going to fix a 7-year problem. So is this a stepping stone to something else? Or I'm really struggling with the big picture here. I'm not sure you've even defined really what we're fixing. You've given me a list of 3 things that are the problem, but you haven't indicated your future state or what you want to see out of this. I don't
And-
want to waste a day and 23 people's time if you're not going to get out of it what you want. And I think you should be honest and upfront on
Yeah.
that piece.
Okay.
And just say, I go through the simulation all the time, happy to do it for you. I'm not understanding the end game.
Yep. When I was on the call with the 22 people, I asked them, you know, what are their current challenges in their role? What are the goals they're trying to achieve? And what are those challenges? And complete silence. Obviously, no one voiced anything. And so my thought is that's the opportunity to go back to leadership and say, there's some bigger underlying things that I think we need to talk to navigate that, like you said, Cammie. Have you guys, what kind of experience, if I were to create a Microsoft form asking their experience with Lean, their training level, what do they see as their goals, their maybe struggles, to get some of that information in an anonymous form?
So real quick, we are at the top of the hour. You guys filled it up really fast. So great job, Heather. I'm really excited for your workshop, and there was excellent feedback from everybody. Cammie and then Jennifer had to jump off, and Gary and everybody. So thank you so much. I have to go because I got stuff and everything. So I'm hosting, so it's gonna end. Gary and Heather, you guys mentioned getting together. Do you have each other's emails, or do you want me to do intro?
We've connected before, so we're
Okay,
good.
perfect.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Thank you everybody for joining. And Heather, of course, you can ask more questions and stuff for sure. Even if you wanted to start a conversation in Basecamp, you know, in the Genius Mastermind
Okay.
forum, and then ask some questions there. So
Okay. Thumbs up or thumbs down real quick on the survey.
You know,
It's a
it's either going to
step.
be hit or miss. It's a
Yeah.
step. I think you're trying to jump in midstream. You don't even
Okay.
know what questions to really ask yet on your
I think you're
survey.
trying to do too much, and I think your expectations of what you can accomplish are much greater than what's realistic.
I do too.
So
I'm jumping
think
off,
we have
Nathan.
to-
I know
Yep.
you have to go.
Yep. All right. Bye,
let's
guys.
connect, and we'll talk
Okay.
further. Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Bye.
When will I see this recording, Nathan?
I upload it to Descript, and then it'll be posted. We edit it and stuff. Let me
Okay.
know to touch base with Maddie.
Okay, and it'll be uploaded where are
To
the recordings
YouTube,
again?
YouTube, and then I put
Okay.
it in Basecamp.